This happened roughly 2 years ago, December to be exact, when my parents had been out doing some Christmas shopping. I recall it was snowing that evening, and I was home alone with my cat. Now, I never had a problem being home alone. In fact, I invited the opportunity any time it arose. It gave me an excuse to be lazy, seeing as my parents were, and still are, pretty strict. Seriously, I can't even play video games for long before the dad says, "Get off of the game. It's gonna rot your mind." Gotta love the parents. Anyways, I was in bed with my cat watching Konosuba on my iPad when my stomach started to growl. The munchies were here. So, I get up from my blanket and a pillow fortress of a bed, and I start heading over to the kitchen, cat in tow. Once I was in the kitchen, I started preparing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich as my cat jumps up to the counter and stares out the window. Now, I wasn't really paying attention at first, since I still had my AirPods in, but when I paused the episode I was watching, I happened to hear my cat meowing. This wasn't any normal meowing like the kind he makes when he's hungry. This was the kind he makes when he's angry, as he started to hiss. I could see all the hairs on his back stand up, and he started clawing at the window. Assuming he had seen a wild squirrel, I ignore his behavior, and I go to take a seat at the kitchen table. A minute or so passes, and he's still staring out the window doing his menacing meowing and his hiss routine. I was starting to get a bit annoyed, so I call him over. Nothing. Okay, this was suspicious. Let me see what the big deal was, I tell myself. I head over to the window, but all I'm able to see was darkness. Seriously, I had no clue what was wrong with my cat. Nonetheless, I grab him, and I start heading back to my room. However, I'm interrupted when all of a sudden, one of the motion-activated lights turns on. Nervously, I take a peek out the window, and this was for the first time this evening. I was able to see a man in a black hoodie holding what looked like a Bowie knife. My immediate thought was he had seen me, but he just walks over to the other side of my backyard. This was the point where I take out my cell phone, and I call 911.
911, what's your emergency?
The woman on the other end calmly stated.
Hi, yes, I'm calling because there's a guy, he's got a knife. He's walking around my backyard. Could you please send some police officers?
I told her, trying to act as calm as possible.
Sure, honey, we'll have somebody go check it out for you. Are your windows and doors locked?
While I was talking to this woman on the phone, I watched the man disappear over my backyard fence. I thought to myself, thank goodness, he was gone. However, things were about to escalate. When I went over to my room and I locked myself in there with my cat, I heard the sound of a window open. Right away, I got the instant chills because I recognized that sound. One of the downstairs windows was notorious for not closing properly, and it was a fear I had ever since I'd seen the creep. The window makes this really loud squeak sound, which indicated entry. I get the courage to quietly open my bedroom door nonetheless, and sure enough, I can hear heavy footsteps walking in the downstairs living room.
He's in my home. Are the police almost here?
I whispered with a sense of urgency.
Okay, remain in your room and don't open it unless the officers tell you to do so.
I then remember her whispering to who I assumed was somebody else in the same room as her.
Okay, sweetie, the police are there. Whatever you do, stay in your room and don't hang up the call.
What happens next was a series of loud yelling between police officers and the guy who broke in. After a few minutes, one of the officers walks up to my room and he tells me it was okay to come out. The lady on the phone told me it was okay to hang up. And soon enough, I'm speaking with the police. Naturally, I had many questions, as my entire living room was a mess. Drawers had been tossed to the ground, and there were a bunch of muddy boot prints. When all was said and done, the man was arrested, and I was left with quite a bit of paranoia. By the way, the man had used the knife to slash the window screen of that one window I mentioned. That's how he managed to get inside. I believe he was scouting my home, which might explain why my cat had been acting funny 30 or so minutes before he broke in. Nonetheless, my dad installed iron bars on all the windows, and we got an alarm system. We haven't had any issues since.